Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the FPL Wire. Today, I have with me Josh Williams, who's done some excellent work with the Anfield Rap, who are highly regarded, not just in the Liverpool community, but I think in the Premier League podcast community as well. He's done some great work with Redman TV as well. How are you doing, Josh?
Doing good, mate. Yeah, it's the first time we've appeared on for a long time, so it's nice to be back.
Yeah, I mean, I must tell you, this was probably one of my favorite preseason pods from last year, and it's been a pleasure just chatting to you all year round as well. And really looking forward to this. A lot of FPL managers are really looking forward to this as well because Liverpool do have good fixtures to start with, and there are a few picks people are interested in. So I think they're going to hang on to every word you have to say.
Well, it's been really interesting for me as well to follow Liverpool during the summer because obviously things have been relatively the same for about 9 years under Klopp, and now this is a bit of a new era. So it's probably feel a bit re-energized to be honest, following Liverpool, which is nice.
How do you feel in terms of how Slot has settled in the first month or two? How are things looking?
Yeah, no complaints at all. I'm generally very happy with what I've seen so far. I think the manager comes across really well. He comes across very demanding as well, like a bit of a perfectionist. Um, like Liverpool beat Man United 3-0, and Slot was in the post match press conference saying we gave away too many chances, and Liverpool beat Arsenal 2-1, and Slot was in the post match presser saying Arsenal dominated the game. He's been teed up to praise the likes of Harvey Elliott and things like that, and he's been very quick to say like, yeah, but I saw a few opportunities where he gave the ball away and things like that. So, and even around the friendlies, he's stressed how important it is to win. So he really comes across as a real winner, basically a real taskmaster who also has an understanding of what's how to be realistic and all that sort of stuff. So really impressed with what I've seen so far. Liverpool are a work in progress, but definitely on the up.
All right. Lots to get into. You've already given us so much good juice there. But before we dive into the swing of things, just a quick word for our sponsor. As you guys know, we've tied up with Fantasy Football Scout for the best part of 5 years, and now they have an application that's available on Android as well as iOS, which has got all sorts of features, including team planners, shot maps, heat maps, player comparison tool, team comparison tools. It's so great and convenient to use. I highly recommend it. So make sure you're downloading the app. And it's really beneficial if you become a Fantasy Football Scout member. So we're affiliates with them. If you are planning on becoming a member, they've got a 40% off at the moment. So do click on the link in the description below. Right, Josh, we'll go to the images a little later if and when we need them. But is there going to be a Klopp hangover effect, firstly? My question to you.
No, I mean it depends specifically what you mean by that. To be fair, what is it you're getting at there?
Are people going to sort of want what they saw from Klopp, etc., or are the fans over that, and are the players ready to fight for the position for this new manager? And none of the hangover, because it took us a while to get going after Sir Alex Ferguson, and Klopp has been that much of a cult figure for you guys. So
No, I don't think Liverpool are going to have any of that problem. To be honest, I think the change was needed. To be honest, I think it was a bit of a fresh start now, and I think the stylistic tweaks that I felt we need to undergo, we seem to be in the process of navigating really, which is good. I think we got to a point at the end of Klopp's tenure where Liverpool were just a bit chaotic and a bit crazy, and sometimes it worked against us, sometimes it didn't. But I always felt Liverpool kind of a little bit too susceptible to the elements of chance, almost siding with variance and just hoping that it benefits them, and doing things off the cuff and things like that. I feel like Slot, by contrast, is gonna. I can see he's watched Liverpool for many times because the tweaks that he's making are the tweaks that I think are really important. Like he's installing a lot more control to Liverpool's game. He's installing a lot more patience. Patience has been the buzzword during pre-season. Um, if you want me to describe the style of play that he's installing, it's very deservy. with the ball. It's very, you're building through the thirds of the pitch with the ball on the floor, 5-yard passes, wall passes, enticing the opposition into pressing. And then when they do, at that point, you stop being patient and you go and you accelerate the game really quickly and you move up the pitch very quickly. And it's very central. It's kind of like a back four with a midfield too. They're responsible for building the game. And the other players kind of form like a bank of four in attack. And it's kind of the responsibility of their back four on the midfield too to get the ball to those front four players as quickly as possible once the opposition have started to press and you can get around them and that and things like that. But I don't think there's going to be any hangover with Klopp. I think that the midfield department now is definitely more suited to this kind of game compared to the midfield department that we had before, which was maybe a bit more industrious, sort of like runners and players like that. I think now we've got more technical players in there who want the ball. And yeah, really excited for the new era, to be honest.
As you mentioned that, because whenever I was reading about Slot as well, uh, he kept mentioning that he was a control freak in his interviews as well. So I'm guessing that's divulging into details, etc. You already got me excited about this conversation that we're going to have. I mean, when I put the tweet out that I'm going to be talking to you today, there were a few people who mentioned that you actually know the club and details of the club, and the numbers look much more than some people involved in the club themselves. So, yeah, man, this is interesting. So what we'll try to do is sort of converge what you see in terms of the footballing bit and what our listeners can get the output out of that from an FPL perspective. So you mentioned more control, more possession. Now Liverpool last couple of seasons, especially last season, weren't very reliable from a defensive point of view, from a clean sheet point of view. With more control, you expect that to change this season?
I think that will definitely change, but not at the start of the season. I think Liverpool are going to have to undergo a bit of a period of pain whereby these attempts to build from the back, I think, will sting Liverpool a few times. It should have happened in pre-season, it didn't. But in another world, the shots that Liverpool conceded from their build-up in pre-season, Liverpool genuinely conceded about 5 goals. But we didn't really concede any. And a lot of that was just due to good goalkeeping or the opposition not being clinical enough or whatever. But I think if Liverpool concede goals initially at the start of Slot's tenure, it will be giving the ball away cheaply in dangerous areas. And I do think it will happen. But over the course of the season, I think Liverpool will get to a point whereby they basically master the first phase of the game and teams stop really pressing them as much. And when that happens and Liverpool start to navigate build up easily, I think from that point onwards, Liverpool will be one of the best defensive teams in the country. I think Liverpool will defend similar to Arsenal. To be honest, it's kind of like it's a 4-4-2 basically on the defensive side. It's very narrow, it's very central, and if Liverpool master Slot's ways, they will know when to accelerate the game, when to be patient, and they will only accelerate the game when everyone expects it to be accelerated. So it will feel very Arsenal, in my opinion. And obviously, Arsenal have had the best defence in the country now for about 18 months, I think, maybe. So Liverpool will be better defensively in the next season, no doubt about it. But I think it will take time to get the level of control that you need to have that defensive assurance, if you see what I mean.
Intriguing you say that, because I'm guessing it's just about them getting to works with the system and the positions they're supposed to cover. Because if you're thinking about that Liverpool defense, at least 4 out of the 5 of them in the back four are just really good on the ball. So I think the transition phase, given the players that you guys have at your disposal, shouldn't take that long. It's just about getting used to the system, you think?
Well, this is the problem so far. What I've seen, the defenders that I've seen have been, Vandenberg has been in there. It's been Kelleher, Conor Bradley, Simicast, I haven't seen yet any of Trent, any of Alisson, any of Van Dijk. I've seen a little bit of Canate. I haven't seen any of Robertson. So any of McAllister either, who's definitely going to help with that build-up play. And today, Liverpool are getting linked with the new number 6, who I'm assuming will be really good on the ball. So you're probably right. I don't think Liverpool will endure like a really long period of pain. I think it will be short term. But I'm just going based on what I'm used to seeing with football. Any team usually that moves towards this kind of possession game in the early stages, the opposition are kind of licking their lips a little bit when they see it, and it's very much like we can get rewards here if we press. And I think if Liverpool have pressed heavily in their first game, for example, away to Ipswich, I think it's entirely possible that Liverpool concede in the first 15 minutes. But over time, as I said, it will decline. I think it'll stop happening over time. But and as you say, Liverpool have really good players, so it might not happen for very long.
Now you mentioned that you haven't seen Van Dijk, Trent, Robbo, etc. play, but I presume they all reported to training on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, which gives them about just under 2 weeks before their first Premier League game. They'll start Game Week 1 against Ipswich.
It's difficult to say. It really is. In a week's time, I think it is. So on next Sunday, I think it is. Liverpool played 2 friendlies in the same day. I think we played Sevilla at Anfield and Las Palmas, I think, is at Anfield as well. That is, I'm assuming that's a means of getting everybody a full game probably before the start of the Premier League season. But I think, say for example, Virgil. I think Virgil will start the first game. I think that's probably a given. Someone like Trent, he probably will. But Conor Bradley's played every single game in pre-season so far, and on top of that, he has been brilliant. He's arguably been Liverpool's best player in pre-season. So that's the kind of situation that Slot might look at and think, well, that's just something I don't need to do. Whereas with Virgil, you bring Virgil in. And with certain other players, mate, Diaz or someone like that, you probably bring Diaz in or something. Or in positions where he doesn't have to do it, like right back, I don't know. If I had to put money on it, I would say Trent starts against Ipswich. But there's just a bit less less certain there because of Bradley's rise.
It's a very, very big statement, and a lot of FPL managers are interested in that because the thing with Liverpool, like I alluded to earlier, is there's heavy interest in the FPL community because you've got Ipswich at home, Ipswich away, Brentford at home, United away, and then Forest and Bournemouth at home. So when FPL managers are looking at the first 5 game weeks, Liverpool is the team that sort of jumps out. They've got the best fixtures amongst their peers at the moment, which is why. But you're thinking if at all Trent misses, he misses the first game max, and the first home game he should be in there.
Well, yeah, I think probably, yeah. I do think he probably starts the first game, to be honest. I mean, it is Trent, and he's come back in immaculate shape as well. He looks very, very fit. And you want him to be as up to speed as possible for that Man United game. So it is probable that he does start. But I think I actually think Simicast is a decent shout to start FPL from the off. I think Simicast is a good shout because Robertson hasn't played a minute yet. He flew home from the US with an injury that he already had anyway when he arrived at the US. He has been kind of growing in injury proneness for about 12, 18 months now. Simicast again has started every friendly and he's looked good. Scored against Man United, albeit a tap-in. And we know he's relatively offensive. He takes set pieces and things like that. So I think he's only 5 million in the game. So I think Simicast is actually a decent, curveball shout maybe to start the season. If you want Trent, Simicast offers very similar perks. When you think about it. playing for the same team and things like that. So I think he's definitely one to watch.
Let's talk Trent and Robo and Simicast for that matter, because this is the cheapest Trent has been in a long time. He was 8 million last year, and this year he's 7 million. But those sort of attacking returns that we're sort of used to with Trent and Robo, they're just not the same anymore. What can we expect from Arnie slot wingbacks, especially in terms of attacking impetus?
So I think Trent will play as a right back under Arne Slot. I don't think he'll play as one of the midfield two, as you can see there on that graphic. That's how Liverpool build the game. So Trent will be heavily involved in the build-up as a right back. But crucially, Slot has kind of reinstalled overlaps and underlaps as well, which is really important. So Liverpool kind of got to a point where pretty much everybody on the pitch was inverting. You had Robertson kind of as a wide centre half. You had Trent as an inverted fullback coming into midfield. You had Salah cutting in and you had Diaz cutting in. So Liverpool didn't really have any width, and it kind of resulted in final third issues where players are standing on each other's toes and getting in each other's way and things like that. During pre-season, Slot is asking a lot of his fullbacks, especially the right-sided fullback. So Bradley is involved or has been involved heavily in the build-up. But then as the move progresses, he's also heavily involved in the final third, advancing beyond the last line, overlapping, underlapping, and then making those cutbacks. As you can see there, that was a goal against Manchester United. Bradley is overlapping there, just about to receive a ball from Salah. Bradley cuts it back, Jota shoots, it gets saved, and as you can see at the bottom of the image there, Simicast taps it in. Now, usually, when Bradley overlaps, Simicast stays, and when Simicast goes, Bradley stays. So it's not quite OG Liverpool, where both of them are basically wingers. But when one of them does go, he can fully go. He's not staying behind or anything like that. He's advancing into the penalty box. So if Trent plays as a right back, which is what I expect, I think he will be doing a lot for Liverpool. I think he'll be seeing a lot of the ball. He'll be relied upon in the build-up phase. But then crucially, when the ball gets into the attacking half of the pitch, he's also going to be involved in and around the penalty box and things like that. And Slot did similar with a player called Geertruida for Feyenoord. He was kind of like a bit of a complete fullback for him. Trent, I think, will be that. So I do think Trent will end up in our team. I think he'll have a lot of value. It's just, I suppose, it's a slight question mark as to whether he starts the first game purely because Bradley's done so well.
And you think by what we'll do is probably I'll be in your DMs the Thursday before FPL launches, and I'll just do like a Josh notes thing, and at that point you can tell us what you're thinking, whether Trent is looking likely, because there will be a lot more information after that as well. So we'll do that for our viewers and listeners at that point. I like.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because Liverpool got so many good options, and I think one of the problems having Liverpool players maybe this season is so many of the good players, even the best ones, are at risk of being subbed relatively early because the substitute options are just really good. Like Bradley he's like Robertson. He just doesn't stop running, and he's very attack minded and things like that. So if around the 65th minute Trent is no longer overlapping or he looks a bit tired or something like that, Bradley's just a really nice, energetic option to just throw on.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting not to see how it works.
You don't mind that from an FPL point of view, like if there's a 65th or 70th minute sub, because a lot of teams tend to lose their clean sheets in the final 20-25 minutes of the game as well. So, if he's rocking a clean sheet in FPL, you don't mind that. But what I'm hearing also is because there was a little bit of worry in terms of, is there going to be one sort of fixed wing back that stays back and one that sort of pushes forward? And what you're telling me is he's trusting both his wing backs to understand their responsibilities, that when the other goes, he sort of stays back. And there's going to be sort of mixed responsibility. But what I do also read is Robo is not as fit as he used to be, and he's not that capable of running down the wings as much as he was able to do maybe 2 or 3 years ago, which means Trent could be doing the majority of the attacking. So a lot of that could be coming from your right side.
Yeah, well, so far in pre-season, the right-sided fullback has definitely been more attacking the left-sided fullback. But I don't know how much of that stems from Bradley just being very attack-minded, and that's just how he plays. Robertson, I think he will be good in this kind of system. There's no way I would be starting the season with Robertson in my fantasy team. That's absolute no go. Just because he still hasn't played a single minute, and Simicast has looked absolutely fine. So I can't see that happen. Yeah, tricky one.
All right. All right. Staying at the back, any worries about Alisson's form? It was last year was the first time he was below his XG prevented. Is there anything you can allude that to? Is there something to worry about at all?
I don't think there's anything to worry about, but I think as I record today, I think he's the only player who hasn't yet returned to the club. I think he's had the longest break of anybody else. And Liverpool are getting linked with new goalkeepers and things like that. There was rumours of him going to Saudi a few months ago. I don't think anything like that's going to happen this summer. But I mean, this is pure speculation, but I just wonder whether he's maybe reached a point whereby he's starting to think about, like, I think I'm done here type vibe. So I don't think there's any issues with his form, with his quality, or anything like that. It's still Alisson Becker, still the best in the world, in my opinion, at what he does. But I am not sure if we have this combo again in a year. I'm not sure he'll still be the guy. But don't quote me on that one.
All right. All right. Now Van Dijk is 6 million, and what's interesting is all your other centre backs are cheaper. Now there's been a lot of interest in Konsa at 4.5 million. Is there a first choice second centre back that's going to partner Van Dijk? Has there been any indication of that from Slot?
It is tricky. I think Kanate is still probably the better player in comparison to Kwanzaa. But Kwanzaa has had the whole of pre-season and he's better on the ball. And that is really, really important if you are playing for Slot. Because of this kind of De Zerbi style build-up, the centre-half has to make good decisions on the ball. He has to be composed. He has to be cool. He has to be progressive. Kanate is just more of a defender, more of a player who suited Klopp's game because it was a bit more like 1v1 stuff. It was aerial stuff. If the centre half had the ball, he could just hit it long and things like that. So that's going to be interesting. I as it stands now, I wouldn't be surprised if Kwanzaa starts the first game.
In terms of preseason minutes, also Konsa has had 45, 64, 72, and 65, and Konate has had one 45-minute run out so far.
Yeah, and in that 45-minute run out, he did lose the ball once or twice as well, just getting to grips with this building from the back thing. So yeah, I think it could be Virgil and Kwanzaa first game at the minute. We'll know more about that when Liverpool play Sevilla, because I assume it will be. Go on.
You assume it will be the starting partnership that will play together?
Well, I assume it will be the starting lineup against Sevilla and the second strings will play against Las Palmas. That's what I think will happen. And just on Virgil as well, Liverpool for the first time are on the lookout for a set piece coach. We don't think he's been employed yet, or she. But Liverpool are employing a set piece coach, and at the minute, I think a fella called Aaron Briggs is overseeing it for now. Used to be at Manchester City, rated very, very highly. But Liverpool have just had a friendly. I think it was the Man United game, and we did do a weird set piece after about half an hour, I think, where every player was kind of at the very back of the penalty box, and then when the ball's coming in, everyone runs in mad directions and stuff. But if Liverpool are going to start doing set pieces again, obviously Van Dijk is very valuable.
Yeah, it's very much in trend in terms of the likes of Brentford and Arsenal. It was a big uh, tool for Arsenal to get a huge chunk of the goals last year, and other teams do need to hire someone of that sort. It'll be interesting if Liverpool are, then Virgil becomes even more important. Uh, Question: until the time Liverpool finds their mystery six, who's going to be playing six for Liverpool?
So it's kind of a double pivot. So there's no real six technically. It's 4-4-2 without the ball, and maybe a bit more of a 4-2-3-1 with possession. So there's no point really where there's a lone six on his own, like Fabinho or Rodri or something like that. I think the two players will consist of McAllister and Jones, first game of the season. But you have Gravenberch who can play there, Besetic who can play there. Whoever Liverpool sign is probably going to be an option there as well. I think McAllister certainly, for me, he's a definite. But I think he'll have a few options there for that kind of midfield slot.
So you're not expecting McAllister to play in that 10 role. You think he's firmly going to be in the double pivot? Because he did that well under
Yeah,
Brighton.
yeah. Well, I think the way in which Liverpool kind of set up, if you go back to that original photo that I showed you, where Liverpool are building the game, it is a back four, and you have two midfielders in deeper areas, right? So if you look at that graphic and you cut the pitch in half where the centre circle is, those players ahead of the ball are the players who they're basically waiting to receive the ball. And when they receive the ball, that is when Liverpool are accelerating the game. That's when Liverpool are going. So those four players ahead of the middle of the pitch in the attacking third, in the attacking half, are kind of like they've got to be good in transition. They've got to be kind of counter-attacking players. They've got to go from A to B pretty quickly. So they've kind of got to be like forwards almost, like midfieldy forwards, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So Szoboszlai's perfect for that. Harvey Elliott's perfect for it. They've both been doing it. I think McAllister, just my own opinion, tactically is better suited to being one of the deeper two as
Eh,
opposed to one of their forwards.
Especially if you're requiring somebody transitionally, like you mentioned. So yeah, that Soboslai and Elliot shout does make sense. But I'm assuming the two guys at the center of the park, one of them is going to be one of Jota or Darwin Nunes, and the other one is probably going to be the 10, which is either going to be Soboslai or Harvey Elliott. Is there a favorite that's emerged in that 10, or Gakpo even? Is there a favorite that's emerged in that 10 slot, in your opinion, that could be an FPL option? Because people are looking, earlier they were looking at Soboslai, and then Slot said that, we don't really have anybody playing up front, which is why we use Soboslai there. Then Harvey Elliott did really well in the last game against United. So, is there a favorite for that spot in your opinion? The number 10.
It's difficult, that one. Elliott, I think, could do it really well, and I think he is just very creative. He just finds openings, and he does find ways into the penalty box and things like that. So I think whenever Elliott plays in it, I do think he'll have product to his game. I do think he'll, specifically when it comes to assists, I think he'll get those. Szoboszlai, I think, is just a better player at the moment. I think it's probably his to lose, to be honest, when everyone's fit. And I think in that spot, Szoboszlai could actually get a fair few returns. I'm not sure on his FPL price off the top of my head.
6.5 million.
6.5.
6.5. Midfielder.
Yeah, it's really not bad. I think I said to you, actually thinking about it, I maybe said to you last year that I can see him being a little bit Odegaard for Liverpool. And certainly in this system, I can see that more so. So he's worth looking at. I think if Szoboszlai's not playing, it'll probably be Elliott, and if neither of those are playing, I think it'll just be another forward, like a Jota or a Gakpo or someone like that.
But like your best bet in terms of minutes today is Soboslai, I reckon. Elliott's even cheaper. Elliott's
Yeah.
5.5 million. But maybe the competition for that spot makes it a little bit of a no-go to start the season because we're not fully confident in terms of who takes that position up.
Well, I probably agree with you, but I do think it'll be Szoboszlai. I'd be amazed if in the first game of the season, Szoboszlai is on the bench. But that's fitness permitting. Like in the final game pre-season, he didn't play. He wasn't even in the squad, and that was apparently just fatigue. Yeah, and Liverpool knowing that they were flying home later that day and didn't want to take any chances with him. But I think Szoboszlai could become, Liverpool with De Bruyne, Liverpool's Odegaard, or that kind of player.
And he's done it for Hungary, and that role sort of suits him. He really didn't have a position that suited him to perfection under Klopp, and I think this sort of free roaming 10 suits him to the T as well. So it'll be interesting if he gets that position. Let's talk about Mo Salah. A lot of people. So what's happened in FPL this season is Cole Palmer's 10.5 million, Saka's 10 million, Foden's 9.5 million. So they're all really expensive assets, and Haaland's 15 million. So in terms of who to get as a premium asset has become a conversation, and Salah's a captaincy option in quite a few weeks in the first 5 game weeks. Is he going to be mature, creative, withholding Mo Salah, or under slot and Feyenoord? Minte got a lot of ball receives in the final third in the penalty area box. Is he going to, like you mentioned, underlap a lot? Is it's going to be more central? What can we expect from Salah this year?
It's interesting, yeah. He's one thing that's for certain. People were debating a lot over the summer: is Salah going to become a central player? Is he going to become a striker and a number 9 or whatever? He's not. He's still very much a player for the right side who is cutting in using his left. That's still very much the case. And in Liverpool's first game of pre-season, we literally didn't have a single forward in the entire squad, and Salah still played on the right. And the front two, I think, were Elliott and
Szoboszlai.
Carvalho, I think, or Szoboszlai or someone. So at all costs, Slot has played Salah on the right. So I think that's going to persist. The width holding thing, he's doing that when Liverpool are building the game. So again, going back to it, when Liverpool are building from the back, and you've got the back two there building with the 4. Salah he's a little bit more inverted there on that picture, but he's been really high and really wide when Liverpool are building the game, just as a means of stretching the pitch and things like that. But as Liverpool edge towards the final third, he has come inside a bit more. He's driving right at his man a lot, and he's getting overlapped, and underlapped as well, which is benefiting him. I think last season he lacked a little bit of that because of what I said earlier. But now, if Bradley underlaps or Trent underlaps, that opens up the prospect of Salah getting a shot away. If he gets overlapped, that opens up the prospect of Salah maybe hitting the cross in or feeding the overlap or whatever. But he has looked busy in pre-season. He's looked good. There was a moment where he scored the opening goal against Arsenal, and he beats Gabriel for pace from the halfway line, which I think was just seeing that felt really good. Just considering he's like 32, 33 now, the fact he still had enough speed about him to beat Gabriel in a race, just felt really good, and he came back immaculate as well, fitness wise. He's walking around with his top off all the time, and I would be doing the same, to be honest. I think he's still Mo Salah basically. When he's not, I will say it, but I still think he's still an output merchant. He's still gonna be popping up with probably the most goals and assists in the team, I'd say. I think the only question mark is, number 1, is he going to play as often because of his age? And number 2, keep an eye on if between now and the end of the window, Liverpool sign a left footer who plays in the forward line. Because if we do, that suggests he's going to get subbed a bit more often. Like, we got linked recently to a player for Real Sociedad called Takafusa Kubo. He plays on the right, and he's left-footed. So if we signed him, that would probably impact Salah's minutes. But other than that, I think he's just as much of a sure bet as he kind of always is, I suppose.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed as a trend also, Salah does tend to get considerably higher percentage of his returns in the first half of the season. And I'm guessing that has to do with his age and a little bit of tiredness in the second half of the season. Considering he's had a full preseason, which out of all the big hitters, only him and Haaland have had, it just makes it very, very difficult to drop Salah early on. So nothing to worry. Absolute take output merchant. Go for Mo Salah is what Josh is telling us.
I think Liverpool as well, just with this new style of play, I think Liverpool are gonna put him in advantageous situations, and I think originally Klopp did, obviously, with the way the 4-3-3 worked initially. Firmino just naturally put Salah in advantageous situations all the time and things. But once Núñez came in and the inverted fullback trend happened and all that, Salah's been doing a little bit more
White play.
Yeah, just kind of magical almost. Just like, he's been playing off the cuff a little bit more, I think, and he can do that. He's good enough to do that. But I think Liverpool this season they're going to be a bit more of a collective unit with a blueprint and a plan. And if that's the case, you obviously want to maximise Mo Salah because he's your top scorer every season. So I think we'll see him in advantageous situations more often than last season, just because of how Liverpool are going to approach the game tactically.
All right, we're almost zeroing down the Haaland Salah draft in my head for me at the moment, Josh. Let's talk about the Liverpool striker. Now, there's a couple of things that I've read where Slot called up Núñez and told him that he wants him to be this number 9 for his project. And obviously, Darwin's one of the late entrants into your camp, and he joined the camp on Sunday. Meanwhile, Jota's had 2 very solid appearances. I think 45 minutes and 55, 60 minutes in the other one. I currently have Diogo Jota in my FPL team. He's a 7.5 million midfielder. Do you think he's going to be the starting striker for Liverpool? And if so, how long do you think I can get away with him in my team?
Tricky question. I personally wouldn't have him in my team purely because of the risk of minutes. I think if he does start in the first game, which is entirely possible because of what you've just said, there is a chance that he probably just gets subbed around the hour mark. When Slot was a Feyenoord, he specifically asked the scouts, his recruitment team, for lots of wingers. And his reason for that is because around the hour mark, when they start losing energy, he wants to swap them. He wants to bring in fresh legs all the time in the final third, players who want to run and all that stuff. Well, Jota's not technically a winger, I suppose, but Liverpool have options in that final third department, and still getting strongly linked with Anthony Gordon as well, by the way. But I think Liverpool's forwards basically are at risk of getting subbed often around the hour mark, and I think Jota especially is one of them. But listen, when he plays, he scores, and he's a natural threat and all that, and he has looked good in the first couple of games. I think he's arguably better suited to the playing style than Núñez is. I think if Núñez is being incorporated into this system, he has to be a little bit Haaland, where you basically keep him away from the ball and he puts the ball in the net at the very last move. Other than that, I don't see him specifically dropping deeper or anything like that. But what I will say is last season, Feyenoord did play with a number 9 if he wants, and it was Santiago Jimenez, and he scored 23 and got 6 assists as well. So maybe Slot will just, use that same blueprint and get the most out of Núñez. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's just the options. The options is what is a problem. I think Salah is the one who is just hardest to replace, mainly because of his preferred foot and his preferred position. Everybody else, it feels like there's at least 2 options, both of whom are really good. And that applies to Núñez and Jota. It applies to Diaz and Gakpo. So if you're playing one of those players, you're just taking that risk that you rather than getting 90 minutes, you'll get less.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things, because he's such an output monster himself, Jota, that under Klopp also the thinking was if he's not going to get 60, he's going to get 30. And he's good for a goal in 30 as well. And my initial thinking was if there was a time to own Diego Jota, it's when his competition was injured. So if Darwin Núñez or somebody gets injured, and at the start of the season where Darwin hasn't had any preseason minutes in his legs. That was the only thinking, if I could get away with it for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe.
I think, yeah, I think over the course of the first 5 games or so, maybe, I think he'll maybe average about, it's tricky, maybe about 55 minutes or something like that, as like an average across. There's some games he'll play half an hour, but some games he'll last longer than that. But Jota in that Liverpool team playing for around an hour is a huge problem for the opposition, and he will get numbers for you. So I can see the pros and cons for it. Yeah, it's a late riser decision, I think, as opposed to someone who plays safe, maybe. But
yeah, all right. I've done enough baiting in terms of wanting confirmation bias, but I hear your point in terms of genuinely expecting 60 minutes in the first 3 or 4 games, and sort of makes me rethink that position in my midfield. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned that Jota and Darwin are the striker options. You think you're not fully confident eventually Darwin wins that spot?
yeah, I am. I think I am. I think Jota is a bit more of a versatile option who can play kind of anywhere, really. I think he can do the second striker thing. I think he can play on the right to a certain level in place of Salah because he's really two-footed. I think he can do the left stuff. So Jota's easy, And what I will say as well, on what I've just said before, if in that first game Jota scores against Ipswich, that probably does lessen the probability that he's getting subbed because he has had a decent pre-season. He's had more of a pre-season than Gakpo, Diaz, Núñez. Salah's had a full pre-season, so Salah's fine. But Jota, he's had a good few minutes, and as I said, if he scores, Klopp might not have much of a reason to sub him. So there's a chance that his performances keep him on the pitch. And given that we're only playing Ipswich and Brentford and teams like that, there's a chance that he just plays more often. So, yeah, again, going back to it, it would be a risk, but it could definitely pay off, though.
I forgot to ask you the larger question, where you mentioned that, because Liverpool will try to play from the back and they might get caught out on the press in the first 5-6 weeks. Are they going to have any problem scoring goals in the first 5-6 weeks?
Well, that is possible. So in the 3 pre-season games that we've played so far, Liverpool have obviously won all 3, only conceded once and scored 6. But Liverpool have only taken 27 shots and they have faced, I think, 38. So results good, but shot-wise, you're averaging 9 shots a game there, which is much lower than Klopp's Liverpool last season. Klopp's Liverpool last season averaged over 20 a game. So Liverpool averaging 9. But there's loads of caveats with that. So I need to stress that half of Liverpool's academy travelled over. You didn't have Núñez, you didn't have Gakpo, you didn't have Diaz, you didn't have McAllister.
Trent, Robbo.
Didn't have Trent, didn't have Robbo, yeah. So there's lots of context behind that. But I do think sometimes when a team is attempting to install control and patience and things like that, sometimes it's a bit more quality over quantity when it comes to getting shots, and you may be getting the final third a bit less, you're getting the penalty box a bit less, but maybe when the shots come, the tap-ins or something like that, ideally. But it remains to be seen whether Liverpool immediately will have, a title-winning attack when it comes to actual product. I think sometimes it might just take a little bit of a bedding in period, but once Liverpool play like this, like they have been, but with better players on the pitch, they should flow. They should, and if they do, it will be. It will explode. You know, it will. I mean, imagine De Zerbi coaching Liverpool in attack. When De Zerbi first took charge of Brighton, they finished that season with the most shots in the Premier League. Brighton and Hove Albion. So this is very, very similar. Very, very similar style of play. And the players are just much better. So it could pop. And again, it goes back to that risk where if you want to jump on that at the very start, you could get paid for it. And I think the part where you get stung, I don't think it'd be that bad, really. I think Liverpool will still score in most games. It just might not be, you know, I don't know. I don't know if Liverpool will be winning like 5-0 or something like that, but I don't know, it's tricky.
Yeah, I still think talent-wise, Liverpool do have top 3 squad in the league at the moment. So yeah,
I agree.
I'm fully expecting Liverpool to finish in the top 4. So even though they take a little bit of phase, I mean, I think they'll be between second and fourth for XG this season, irrespective. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Let's talk about the left wing spot. Is their first choice? Gakpo really was sensational at the Euros. And there's been some rumors about Diaz leaving the club. What's happening in that position?
That spot is probably up there with the hardest to predict, simply because, as you say, Gakpo had a really good Euros. He definitely seems to favour that spot. Arne Slot is Dutch. He knows of him well. He's faced him as an opponent a few times when Gakpo played for PSV. When Slot was asked about Gakpo, where'd you see him playing? He didn't actually tell us, but he said, I've got a few ideas. So everything I've seen of Gakpo suggests he plays only on the left and can't really play anywhere else, if I'm being completely honest.
You don't think he has the tools to play that 10 position? No.
Well, it's weird with him because it feels like he should, but whenever he plays in the middle, or anywhere near towards midfield, I don't like that. I just don't think he plays very well, and he gets completely bypassed, and he's anonymous almost. But whenever he plays on the left, he's maybe not as much of a killer as a Salah or a Mane or someone like that, but he performs okay, reasonable enough to be deserving of a spot there. Whether he's good enough to start there for a team like Liverpool is a question, but I definitely think that's where he wants to play and that's where he plays best and all that. And then the Diaz question, I think the sale is more kind of manufactured by supporters because he's 27 now. Liverpool are getting linked with Andy Gordon, who again favours that spot. Diaz's father is always talking about Barcelona every 5 minutes. PSG have just lost Mbappe, so there's maybe a vacant spot there, but there's no actual concrete stuff in there at all that suggests Diaz is going anywhere. So I think it could be Diaz and Gakpo for the left side, but then if we sign Anthony Gordon, I don't know what happens because you've suddenly got a lot of players over there. So that is definitely an interesting one to see what happens there, because for the whole of pre-season, Fabio Carvalho's played there because we haven't had Gakpo, we haven't had Gordon, we haven't had Diaz. So we'll see more of that over the next week.
All right. So from an FPL point of view, stay away from that spot, basically.
For now, yeah, definitely.
All right. I mean, that's covering all the positions and getting all the questions in that I wanted to. Is there any other piece of information that you think listeners might find useful from a football FPL sort of point of view? One thing that I hear you tell me, right, is that if Liverpool do concede a few goals trying to play out from the back, because I saw that against United also, where we in the first 15 minutes had a fair few chances. You were spot on when you said Ipswich could have chance. It does sort of mean that Liverpool will have to then score goals to win those games as well. So it doesn't have me worried that much about the attacking up. Is there anything else that you think you want to cover or mention?
Yeah, I just think Liverpool, it's not so much of a crazy change. But for anyone who hasn't watched any of Liverpool yet, it is still very Klopp without the ball. You're very, you're pressing and all that sort of stuff, but it is a bit more measured. It's more 4-4-2 defensively. It's more controlled with the ball, more patience, more of a collective. You have overlaps back, you have underlaps back. Yeah, that sort of thing, really. I think the fullbacks, I think Simicast is one, again, that I would keep an eye on. Bradley would be a brilliant buy if Trent wasn't in the picture. But because Trent is, Trent starts, he's just too good not to start.
Is there a world in
Um,
which Trent plays in the double pivot and Bradley does the wing back?
I don't think so. I think just looking at how Slot is used as midfield too, it's really technical in there. You've got to receive the ball perfectly. You've got to receive the ball under pressure in any situation. Your first touch has got to be immaculate. And I think Trent benefits when he's in a bit more space. Trent is good in the final third. You get more of Trent, I think, if you play him as a fullback in this system. And the fact that we're getting linked with the new 6 as well tells me that that's where Trent is going to play as a right back. But yeah, it's funny. I think there's obviously great options there for Liverpool, but this is probably the most depth that we've ever had, I would say. The only player who doesn't really have a substitute for him is still Salah. Yeah.
The De Zerbi comparison, I just wanted to touch base to that. It's the comparison when they are in possession of the ball, because it was a lot more chaotic defensively for Brighton Hove Albion, and they conceded a fair few amount of goals, but that shouldn't be that drastic when it comes to Liverpool's defensive capacity and capability, because it would worry FPL fans.
No, it's definitely better on the defensive end than what De Zerbi showed. So if I was to, this is big praise I'm saying here now, but I would say current Liverpool look to me like they are going to be De Zerbi's Brighton with possession, but Arteta's Arsenal without possession. And that's quite a praise, I realise that, but that's what I'm saying.
Once
but what I'm
transition period kicks in, you've given that caveat to us.
Yeah, all I would say on that is just maybe not yet. You know what I mean? It might take some time. The level of the players will determine that, and crucially as well, what I'll also throw in there is it just when you're installing this brand of football and you're convincing your players of these ideas, it really does help if you just keep winning. And if you win the game, if you take the lead often and things like that, and you're never behind and all that, it really accelerates the process. Whereas if you're trying to be patient on the ball, but you concede first, your head might just go, and you might concede again in 2 minutes, or something like that. Or if you keep losing, you lose faith that it's the right idea, and that's all. It's I think the speed at which Liverpool get to grips with this game will be determined by a number of different factors that we can't yet predict.
I mean, I do want to tell our listeners and viewers, who might think that maybe Josh is hyperboling in terms of what Liverpool are capable of, but I've known and followed him for a while now, and he's very measured and pragmatic in the way he does content, in the way he does his tweets as well. So if he's genuinely citing the ceiling of Liverpool, there is lots of legs behind that. I just wanted to say that to our listeners and viewers. I think that covers it all, Josh, in terms of what we've needed to give. I mean, this was brilliant. I got so much from your conversation. I have Guardiola in my FPL draft at the moment. I am thinking of changing him to Trent if that option so emerges. I'm thinking of Konsa at 4.5 if I need a 4.5 million defender. Salah's about 10% more locked in my draft, and I'm still wondering about Diogo Jota. You know me, I like to take that slight upside risk as one. But it's been a pleasure, Josh. And where can our listeners and viewers find you?
Well, before I say that, I would just like to mention you said Josko Guardiola there. Yeah. I have to give you a shout out for that one, mate, because last season there was a point where I needed some points, and I was I might have wildcarded, and I think I slid into your DMs and asked. I think it was, I can't remember who it was out of. It was Guardiola or I don't know, Aki or Diaz or someone like that. And you said Guardiola, and I just thought, go on then. And
Yeah.
then he ends up scoring a
Yeah.
hat trick every week.
Yeah. I know.
So that helped me a lot, and that was down to you, mate. So credit for that one. But in terms of where to find me, I am at distance covered on every platform. And if you want to read about Liverpool's pre-season, constantly track Liverpool's development, where we're going and all that, I now have my own Substack.
Lovely.
That's distancecovered.substack.com. And you can see, you know, I include like video clips, very short video clips and all that stuff. If you want to know more about the behaviour of the fullbacks and things like that, you can see that on my Substack. So yeah, just subscribe.
Subscribe, and what I'll do is I'll throw the links to everything you mentioned in the YouTube description as well, so you can just access that through that as well. Pleasure, Josh. I think we need to do this more often. I don't think this needs to be once a season conversation. So I will be in your DMs, and we'll probably be chatting Liverpool again at some point this season. Thank you so much. Any last words?
No, just thanks for getting me involved, mate. Cheers. It's nice to get back involved with FPL and with the season.
Likewise, man. Likewise. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe. I'll be back with Zoff and maybe Tom Freeman on Thursday. We'll be probably discussing forwards. Take care, guys.